For your convenience, please turn your cameras and microphones off during the webinar. For questions and comments, please use the chat located in the center of the bottom of your screen. We will now start the webinar.
Muy buenos días, very good morning or good afternoon as time zone that you are in dictates. Welcome to today's webinar. Welcome to the webinar on sustainable operations, decarbonization of the Port-Maritime sector, part 2. My name is Jorge Duran. I am the chief of the Secretariat of the Inter-American Committee on Ports, also known as SIP, OAS. And it is indeed my pleasure to welcome to this webinar today Ms. Tania Miranda, Director of Environment and Climate Change Program for the Institute of the Americas, as well as Sabina Malnis from the SIP, project manager, and who will be moderating this webinar, and especially our three guests, our three speakers, Mr. Vinicius Patel, Port Administrator, Director from the Porto Vazu in Brazil, Mr. Travis Gardner, Health and Safety Environmental Officer from Barbados Port Inc. in Barbados, and Ms. Julieta Juarez Ochoa, Head of Commercialization Management for the ASIPONA Manzanillo, or the Administration of the National Port System in Mexico of Manzanillo. Today, we are conducting this webinar as a part 2 because the Institute of the Americas and ourselves had already done a first webinar earlier in the first half of this year on environment and decarbonization, and now we have these experts here who will certainly broaden our discussions. Before I go into a little bit more of detail, what we've done is that we have gotten this panel, we've convened this panel of experts to discuss several methods, tools, strategies, and plans for achieving port decarbonization. Let me remind everybody that the industry is currently undergoing an energy transition period, both in the energy that is provided to the ships as we are trying to move away from greenhouse gas producing fuels to other alternatives. And of course, there are many, hydrogen and ammonia and LNG and so forth. But we're also talking about the decarbonization and energy transformation of the port itself. Ports are ever increasingly trying to provide shore power to the ships that are in ports so that the ships can cold iron and can rest their engines. And then they are increasingly powering the equipment at the port with electric energy, with non-polluting energy. However, I always say this, it is important to remember where we're getting this energy from. Because if we're just moving and getting this electric energy from a coal producing a plant, well, then we're just moving the pollution from the port to the plant. Same with batteries in the equipment. We must ensure that this comes from a renewable solution. So this time here, we have 3 cases, if you will, from Barbados, from the Porto Vazu, and from Mexico that hopefully will offer a varying context, economic context, different port sizes, and different port decarbonization strategies to see what everybody is doing in their own capabilities and capacities. Before I turn into to Tania, my friend, I wanted to tell you all that we do have 148 registered participants from 20 7 different countries. And I'm going to go ahead and read these countries. We have registrations from Afghanistan, Argentina, Barbados, Belize, Bolivia, Brazil, Canada, the Cayman Islands, Colombia, Costa Rica, Dominica, the Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, Guyana, Honduras, Jamaica, Mexico, Panama, Peru, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad and Tobago, the United Kingdom, the United States, Uruguay, and Venezuela. And let me welcome you all to this SIP webinar. That said, Tanya, I'm going to hand you the floor for some welcome remarks before we turn it over to Sabi as moderator. So, Tanya, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jorge. Sabi, can you make a thumbs up if you hear me? Cool. Well, thank you, Jorge, SIP team, for inviting us to co-host this webinar. As Jorge explained, we're very happy to undertake the second part of a series of webinar where we've been co-hosting throughout the year on sustainable shipping and port operations. It's a real pleasure to be here representing the Institute of the Americas. For those that don't know me yet, my name is Tanya Miranda. I lead the Environment and Climate Change program here. And as I'm going to be very brief, as Jorge already explained the narrative of our discussion today, but I think that as climate negotiations of COP29 just ended at Baku a few days ago, at the IMO's October meeting in London as well, we can safely say that the challenges that we have ahead are enormous. Climate change consequences are already here, and the port and maritime industry has a really huge role to play to mitigate them. The sector not only produces 3% of greenhouse gas emissions globally every year, but it also represents 5% of energy, 5% of global oil demand. And I think that there are multiple solutions at a global scale being discussed. The IMO is putting forward a carbon intensity measure, as well as a carbon levy, or in practice is a tax on carbon emissions that are being discussed as well. But aside from these regulations at the international level, there's a lot that can be done at the local and national levels, and national regulations that are more important than ever, and especially port-specific initiatives. As we know, things move really slowly at the IMO level, and projects that are underway at the port levels really demonstrate that the industry can change, and more importantly, that it can innovate. And I think those buckets that Jorge already explained on decarbonization at the port level, that at least right now we're putting it under the buckets of 1, digitalization and logistics, 2, electrification. Jorge mentioned shore power, ancillary services, electrifying cranes and tugboats, and of course the big one, which is energy demand, alternative fuels. That's those 3 ways and venues for decarbonizing the industry are how we organize today's webinar. We'll have an expert to talk about each of those 3 important categories, which I think will talk about not only challenges and opportunities, but also Jorge explained different regional dynamics. We chose ports from very different countries around the hemisphere, which will help really understand the different challenges that we're facing in the industry. So I think this will be a very fruitful discussion for everyone, no matter where you joined from Ecuador, and I think there was someone from Afghanistan, which is insane. So thank you again to the SIP for joining us and from inviting us to co-host this webinar. Thank you to our experts and everyone for tuning in, and I'll hand it off back to Jorge. Thank you.
Institute, who has been a partner of the SIP for many years, and we reactivated this alliance just recently, specifically in this field. I do know that Barbados has an excellent practice on this, but I won't give anything away, and I will now turn it over to Sabi Malnis who is a program coordinator from the CIP, from us, from our team, for her to introduce the rest of the panelists and conduct the webinar. I shall see you all at the end. Sabi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jorge. Thank you, Tanya, for your insightful introductions. As Jorge said, my name is Sabina Malnis, project manager at the SIP, and I'm the lead technical expert for sustainable port operations and waterway management of the SIP. It's my pleasure to moderate the second edition of our webinar series, Sustainable Operations, Decarbonization of the Port-Maritime Sector, in partnership with IOA. Today, we have a distinguished panel of speakers representing Porto de Azul, Barbados Port Inc., and ASIPONA Manzanillo. And they will share their unique strategies and experiences in port decarbonization, covering a wide range of topics from energy transition to digitalization. So without further ado, let's welcome our first speaker, Mr. Travis Gardner from Barbados Port Inc. Travis is a dedicated early career sustainability professional specializing in environmental and social compliance within the maritime and port sectors. As a junior member of the Health, Safety, and Environment Unit at Barbados Port Inc., he contributes significantly to enhancing the port's environmental and social management system through rigorous monitoring, evaluation, and improvement initiatives. With a strong academic foundation in ecology and environmental sciences, Travis has developed expertise in marine conservation, sustainable energy systems, and pollution management. His ability to address complex compliance challenges, combined with his passion for fostering positive change, makes him a valuable contributor to the ongoing transformation of the maritime industry. Travis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sabina, for your introduction. Good morning, afternoon to everyone as well. Just confirming that you're seeing my screen.
Yes, we see.
Okay, great. So today we'll talk a little bit about the Port of Bridgetown. So just for context, the Port of Bridgetown is managed by Barbados Port Inc., with a vision to be the most innovative and green maritime hub in the world by 2030, which is very fitting for today's discussion on decarbonization. The Port of Bridgetown is, by comparison, a very small port spread across 90 acres, and is a combined cruise and cargo operation facility. A little bit more about the facility is that it processes about 90% of the goods imported in Barbados. So a very busy port with a very small footprint, if you will. And the fact that the port is an award-winning ISO 9001 certified port. So, as Jorge mentioned, the ports in today's discussion have very different contexts. And for us in Barbados, we have quite a few challenges, but if I were to highlight just three to focus on would be the high energy costs, significant demands for efficiency, as you can appreciate, goods coming into the island in such a massive quantity requires good efficiency for the port to operate. And as I mentioned, it is a 90-acre facility, so there's very limited space. So all kind of related points of discussion. So in terms of our presentation today, we'll discuss the current state of the port in terms of our fleet modernization activity, focusing on improved building design, electrification, and how we integrate technology into our transition. So a little bit about our equipment. So the port started off with about 8 diesel-electric straddle carriers in 2015, and that formed the basis of our fleet. Those straddle carriers were all diesel, around 25-ish years old in terms of technology. And the port decided that that was the time to begin the transition to improve the air quality of the equipment or the facility. So around 2016, the first 5 new hybrid diesel-electric straddle carriers were procured for the port, improving the operations and beginning the phase out of the original 8 diesel straddle carriers. In 2021, the port then began in earnest the fleet replacement projects. So we had an additional 2 new hybrid diesel electric straddle carriers as pictured there facing each other. And then in 2023, the straddle carrier replacement cycle was completed with the addition of 10 straddle carriers over the course of 3 months between October and December in 2023. In terms of our fully electric equipment, the port is actually featured by a myriad of fully electric equipment. Our gantry cranes are fully electric. So the fuel savings combined with the fully electric equipment was really complementing each other. And for reference, we have fully electric terminal tractors, and being mindful as well in the decarbonization effort, it's not only focusing on the natural environment, but also the implications for our customers, because we're very mindful of the diesel particulate matter from the emissions. So the transition for the use of electric equipment within our customer-facing areas was first on the agenda, using strictly electric forklifts in those customer areas. In terms of digitization, our infrastructure has transformed over the past 5 years or so through the implementation of a maritime single window, because we believe that increasing the efficiency helps with moving or reducing rather the amount of carbon emitted by the systems or in and around the port. So the increased information sharing through the digital systems expedited the clearance of vessels in anticipation of their arrival or departure. It would also integrate the terminal operation system, Optify, which is also a digital system, and that helps with efficiency in terms of movement of cargo from the storage area to the delivery area, improving efficiency not only in delivery operations, but also from ship to shore operations. So we've now managed to average approximately a 3-minute wait time in the loading and offloading areas at the exchange grid as a result of leveraging that digital infrastructure. Moving on to our energy efficient buildings, through our new administrative office, which is about 3-4 years old at this point, we thought that it was necessary to also see where we could achieve savings here. So the building is now featured by automatic lights, LED installations, and the HVAC systems are combined with a building management system to optimize the temperature and manage that control based on the climate, the exterior climate of the building rather. And this also contributes to our savings. In terms of alternative fuel use, this is really an industry-wide focus now. We actually facilitated the first home porting cruise ship using LNG in 2023. And this was a partnership between the port and the state-owned fuel importer to facilitate this first refueling exercise, which is on the vessel pictured here. And as I mentioned, this is an industry trajectory. So this is an activity we're seeing an increasing amount of as we invite more business to the Port of Bridgetown. In terms of our PV system, so as I mentioned, our context is quite different. So Barbados experiences about 3,000 hours of sunlight annually. And we thought that this was an amazing opportunity for us to leverage the development of a photovoltaic system. So right now the port has an approximately 400 kilowatt system, which we invested in starting in 2018 to begin the energy transition for the port. So to meet the very basic needs in terms of charging the electric terminal equipment and our digital infrastructure in and around the port environs to start with. So I've laid the groundwork or kind of where we are at right now in terms of our decarbonization activity. But the port, with aspirations to become the most innovative and green maritime hub by 2030, has a vision for the future as well. So we'll look at the future state in terms of the increased digital integration of the port, improved building design going forward, and also our electrification efforts. So one of the larger projects, our digital infrastructure projects, is the port community system, which will be developed in-house. And the whole idea of a port community system is to increase that interagency communication. So leveraging communication between the agents and those persons, or the several agencies that work in the port to ensure that cargo moves as quickly and as efficiently as possible to, again, reduce the amount of time and inefficiencies and idling that may occur in the port using those fossil fuels. So is expected to reduce the truck wait time due to the cargo holds, because as you can appreciate, any port is really a multi-stakeholder agency. And Barbados Port Inc., we have, I think, about 8 government agencies working, who all have their separate roles to play within our little port community, as I like to call it. Building forward as well, the port has a master plan, which communicates the intention really to include several new buildings in terms of administrative or cargo processing areas in the expanded facility. So all new infrastructure as a result would employ the technologies in use, especially the ones that were introduced in our administrative building, as well as other facilities around the port, to again reduce the power consumption that is coming from our administrative facilities. In terms of the energy management of the port, I made reference to our 400 kilowatt PV capacity already, but the port has already started work to increase the capacity of the facility, utilizing more on-site roof space, because it is we are cramped for space, yes, in approximately 90 acres, but there are quite a few buildings spread across the facility that we thought that it was necessary to capitalize on that vacant roof space. So with the available real estate, as I like to call it, on the roofs, we will be moving from 400 kilowatts to approximately 2 megawatts at the end of the PV project, which is ongoing. Finally, I think too it's necessary as a port waste reception facility to highlight that to complement our energy management and to clean up our act, if you will, in terms of the processing of waste, the port is also investing in a waste energy facility to effectively manage waste from ships and revitalize or revamp rather the current approach of just burning in the incinerator, which also could have contributed to carbon emissions. So employing environmental controls in our waste reception and processing, as well as gaining energy from the processing of that waste, is another opportunity in which the Port of Bridgetown is kind of cleaning up the act, so to speak. So on that note, I'd like to thank you very much, and I look forward to the Q&A segment.
Thank you, Travis, for sharing the impressive work Barbados has been made toward decarbonization. Your unique approach, including fleet upgrades to hybrid vehicles, energy efficiency for buildings, processing of waste, and installation of PV systems, offers valuable insights into alternative decarbonization strategies. We hope to see these innovative solutions that can inspire similar initiatives across the Caribbean region. As Travis also highlighted, digitalization is a powerful tool in the fight against climate change. We'll explore this further in the presentation of Julieta Juarez Ochoa from Mexico, our next speaker. Julieta Juarez Ochoa, originally from Manzanillo, Colima, is an expert in maritime port sector with more than 12 years of experience. She holds a degree in international business from the Tec of Monterrey and a master's degree in administrative sciences from the University of Colima. She has completed various diplomas and international programs in port management, data science, and finance. She is currently commercial manager at the Manzanillo administration of the National Port System, where she leads key projects such as national implementation of Puerto Inteligente Seguro, type of PCS, and the coordination with national associations for system interconnections. Julieta, you have the floor.
Hello, thank you, Sabina. Let me share the presentation. Do you see it? Okay,
Yes.
excellent. Well, let me start with this one. Well, the port of Manzanillo is located in the Mexican Pacific, so due to these geographical characteristics, it is highly vulnerable to the effects of climate change, which is why the approach to the decarbonization has become so relevant for our port and the ports of Mexico. This involves a gradual reduction in emissions that will affect multiple aspects of our daily operations. In accordance with the strategy of the International Maritime Organization, the ports of Mexico have proposed their strategy with similar objectives for 2030. This is why this approach to the digitalization is how we move to the use of the digitalization. To start, the digital sector consumes 3% of the global primary energy, 7% of the electrical energy, and 5% of global emissions. This is why digitalization can make existing products and activities more efficient and greener. And at Manzanillo and at our Mexican ports, we're convinced that the use of the information technologies contributes to reducing the greenhouse emissions. And this is why in 2021, we launched the digital transformation of ports operations with the implementation of Puerto Inteligente Seguro. And what is Puerto Inteligente Seguro? Puerto Inteligente Seguro was born as the first commercial digital platform of the national port system, where the port administrations manage all the operations and the administrative process, as well as the security part. This interacts with all the entities involved in the logistic process, and as well, the authorities are part of this platform because we have different procedures here in the port, and everyone is now involved in the platform. Shipping lines, importers, customer brokers, transportation companies, terminals, and service providers. And also we have authorities like customs, immigration, and the harbor master. With this coordination between the different participants of the logistic chain and the port authorities, we have now a single platform for the documentation required upon arrival, stay, and departure of ships in Mexican ports, making Puerto Inteligente Seguro our maritime single window in the ports of Mexico. In this platform, we have three main lines. The first one is focused on safety and security and has some operation views like registration and validation for every company, personnel and vehicles in the port. We also have the access control in this line. And the second line is a operational process that involves the port processes itself and the financial processes. And the third one is a coordination that we have with other entities, authorities, and some associations in Mexico to have the full information of the port operations. In this platform, we have different environments for the appropriate use of the information and the execution of different operational processes. The first one is the one for the ASIPONAs, which is mainly the link between the port users and the port administrators and the authorities. And the second one is in national environment, which is more focused on the authorities, but at a central level, they have all the information of all the ports in Mexico. And the third one is another for marinas and fishery harbors, because in Mexico they have different necessities from commercial ports. This port systematization and digitalization process have helped us to evaluate the operations and missions, and also to make processes more transparent. And now we have greater control of the information, and it's been designed as an innovative and sustainable platform. It's more safe, it's more reliable and safer, and has helped us a lot to the process automation and to improve the times in the management of the port. Now, talking about the decarbonization objectives, strategy of the Mexican ports was determined by the General Coordination of Ports and Merchant Marine, and it's to reduce the emissions generated by ports operation in the national port system in compliance and contribution with international and sectoral goals. So for 2030, we have a reduction of 25%, and for 2050, we have a reduction of 45%. With this in mind, we start with different international goals as a basis, but in 2022, we began using a file that was given to all ASIPONAs on Mexican ports with a carbon footprint calculation tool that was developed by the Inter-American Development Bank. And in 2023, we start with a model named EcoPace that was specific for these calculations. It was launched in Manzanillo, but early this year, it was implemented in the rest of Mexican ports. EcoPace is an automated system for the registration and control of emission from all ports in Mexico. And now talking about EcoPace, it's a tool easy to use for us as users. It's updatable, independent tool, and we have the historical data, and this helps us a lot to have an analysis based on indicators. Currently, I've fully completed one of these modules that is the emissions inventory, which is focused in 3 scopes. The first one, it's the measurement of direct emissions. The second one is the indirect emissions from electricity consumption. And the third one is the indirect emissions from sources that are not owned by the reported entities. And we also are now developing more models that are focused on the reduction measures, and another one for the indicators part. We have different parts involved in EcoPace. Mainly, we have capturists is for the terminals part. We are a validator and administrator in the EcoPace, and then we have the general coordination which is in charge to see all the information and to analyze all the information. At this moment, we have more than 100 terminals and port services providers from all ASIPONAs that reports the scope 1 and scope 2. Now we have 18 ASIPONAs in the countries, which are federal ports integrated in this EcoPace for the 3 scopes, and we have the general coordination part, which analyze everything as a one. For the inventory process, it starts with the period opening, and then we pass to the capture part. Then we validate the information, and then we integrate and close the reports, and finally we have the results. And Also, this model is connected to other models in Puerto Inteligente Seguro, such as vessels, appointments, and transport, and this gives us the information times upon arrival and departure of vessels, and also the times where the trucks enters to our port. Now we are also working in the use of artificial in Puerto Inteligente Seguro. And now we have some processes focused on safety and security, administration, financial, and operations processes, but we are moving to see how this it's useful for us to also be part in EcoPeace. And for instance, we have the use of artificial intelligence connecting with EcoPeace to provide information, for example, in the movement of the trucks inside the port. And also we have another one that is now working, that is the smart lanes use that has been developed for operational efficiency and continuous improvement for port operations. And this is seeking to improve port operations, but also to use the digitalization processes and the use of artificial intelligence to be a greener port in Mexico. And now it's not just Manzanillo port, but also all the ports in Mexico. We made a port community commitment to climate change as ports in Mexico for the coordination and all the efforts. And also we are now quantifying and analyzing to understand the greenhouse gas emissions to take actions to reduce this impact to the future. And this wouldn't be possible with the participation of all our terminals and all our parts involved in our Mexican ports. It's all for this.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you, Julieta, for demonstrating how digitalization can effectively complement decarbonization efforts. It's crucial to adopt an integrated approach that considers various aspects of development. So last but not least, we have our last speaker, Vinicius Patel, the Port Administration Director of Porto de Azul, Brazil. Mr. Patel is an executive with more than 15 years of experience in port, oil and gas, and logistic industries. He served as Chief Executive Officer, Chief Financial Officer, and Logistics and Supply Chain Project Manager in companies such as Braskem and Gran Energia. He joined the Prumo Group in 2017 to help set up Dome Servicios Integrados, and joint venture between Prumo Logística and Gran Energia focused on subsea infrastructure for oil and gas industry. He has been Port Administration Director of Porto de Azul Operação since 2019, in charge of maritime management, infrastructure, quality, health, environment and safety, and institutional relations at the port. His challenge is to operate and develop ASU efficiently and safely in line with the best ESG practices. Vinicius, the floor is yours. Vinicius.
Now you can hear me?
Yes,
Yeah?
I can hear you. Yeah, we
Was
can't
just
see you,
blocked
but we
there.
can hear you.
Okay, now I think you will see me as
There
well.
you go.
Yeah,
Yes,
all
there
right.
we can see you.
I was just trying to push the button, but was not allowing me to connect. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. Just share some slides. And is it share?
Yes,
Did
if you
it
can
start
put it in
sharing?
full screen,
Yeah.
that would be great.
Okay. There we go. Okay. So just trying to bring some points and aspects from Porto do Açu. We have, I just changed the slide. If not changed it yet, you can let me know here. But where we are in the southeast region of Brazil. It's basically where we have our GDP concentration. More than 50% is right in the southeast, and it's also where we have all the main assets producing, and also the energy consumption stays here. So 52% of the energy consumption of Brazil is concentrated also in the southeast. We are a very young port, and we are a different kind of port. We are a fully private port. We own the land, and we work as landlords developing all the terminals. And we actually completed in the last October 10 years of operation, 10 years from the first vessel, and now we are handling around 90 million tons. This is what we made in 2023, and the numbers are doing good for 2024 as well. We have in a total 11 terminals operating in Açu, and we are much more an industrial complex with a state-of-art port asset. So this is how we are organized. So we have like thermal power plants, gas fire. We have huge infrastructure for oil and gas and subsea market, but also we have several initiatives and contracts on sustainable and innovative development for ports, not in Brazil, not only in Brazil, but also considering the whole spectrum of new business focus on sustainability. So I will share here what we call as a Sul Green Hub. So this is basically our strategy for low carbon business, and we are very lucky. We can put like this, because we have a very good connection with the main grid, the energy power grid of Brazil, which now delivers around 90%. Last year was 89% of renewable energy on the power outlet of all the houses. So this is a very, very important point. And also we have a good capacity of the PV generations, the solar power plants. And also we are in a region where we have a very good wind speed as well. And we have more than 300,000 hectares on the surrounding areas of the port that can provide us with biomass, and this biomass can be converted into biogas and biomethane. And basically, we are obviously looking to have green hydrogen as part of this process, but surely we believe that industrialization for local market as the main off-taker of all of this. If we consider that this industrialization that comes through green hydrogen will pass through green ammonia, also through green methanol, we can develop different industries like green fertilizers. We can work on the green steel alternatives to have the steel mills with a lower carbon footprint passing through green hydrogen. And we must consider that these industries, they are the most offender, the biggest offender when we think in carbon footprint. So this is part of the connection that we are making, but of course we are looking to surplus our market to offer and observe the local demand, and actually exporting the surplus whenever we have it. So it's a different concept. And why we have this concept? Because hydrogen is a very hard product to handle. Also is methanol and ammonia, because we do have technology to handle it, but we have a very lower content of energy in each molecule. So we have some challenge as a world community to make this new fuel. So this is something that we've been working after, trying to find out, as everyone is, which will be the fuel of future. But what we have so far is that in any conversion, we will lose energy, and doesn't make a lot of sense to turn hydrogen or like solar energy into hydrogen and then going to green ammonia to reach somewhere and we crack this ammonia to have the hydrogen back, because we will spend a lot of energy on doing that, and we must find different alternatives. But if we look into the final goods, this seems to be the best solution and the best alternative when we look worldwide on how to face the carbonization problem. We must look not only as a single country, but looking worldwide what will be the solutions. Because make fuels traveling around doesn't seem to be the solution. So this is just one point that we consider in our strategy, and one point that we still have, and most part of the countries will pass, is to use gas as a transition fuel as well. And of course, once we have all of these fuels, the green corridors will be established to make these logistics and this supply chain to provide e-fuels, biofuels to all of our vessels that will consume or emit around 3% of the world's footprint on carbon. So this is one shot of what we are doing and organizing ourselves. And to do that, we basically organize ourselves in 3 pillars. So we look very, very strong into efficiency. So operational and energy efficiency is part of our plan, and it's part of all the ports that are together with us. And also we have 2 other pillars. One, focus on how to have these green energies and feedstocks to provide solutions and to substitute fossil fuels. So basically, it's part of what we are doing as well, providing alternatives. But as I mentioned, we are, of course, we are a port, but we are also an industrial cluster. And we have, as part of the development of the port, to attract new business and new industries that are connected to sustainability and with the provision of these green energies. So, of course, we are developing all of these new industries, and we can show some of these with all our green hydrogen and green ammonia and green methanol industrial cluster that we established is around 1 million square meters industrial district within our port to make this transformation happen. So we just made all the environmental permit to establish this hub, and this is something that we will share later on, because we applied and we won the World Port Sustainability Program on infrastructure with this project, where we already have 2 commitments with companies that will establish their plants, their facilities to produce green hydrogen and green methanol. So we do believe that this making all the dots being connected, and we are with a good capacity to provide goods for the internal market, but also to export. When we look to our decarbonization plan, of course, we have a vision to be recognized as the port of energy transition in Brazil, and our ambition is to be in 2050 net zero. What we've done so far, we are aiming to have 50% reduction by 2030, and we reached around 30% already. So this is something that we still have to work on, but we have a good track record, reducing more than 50% of our target for 2030. So this is a good point, and we must do more to reach where we planned. And here we have some examples of how we've been doing optimizing process, always looking after efficiency. So on our dredging process, we have one of the single projects focused on dredging worldwide that has the seal of PIANC as a working with nature project. So we are using alternatives to reduce the amount of dredging. We developed alternatives to use the residues of the dredging, transforming into civil construction blocks, so we can reuse this material instead of create a residue. So this is something that we are already doing, and we also are optimizing all the dredging campaigns, working with underkill clearance dynamic process, so we reduce the amount required as well, and this gives us a huge optimization as well. We have our plants based in 4 sources of water. One, of course, is like sweet water, and we work to reduce this as much as we can. So we have our power plants, like 2 power plants that produce 3 gigs of energy. To people that's not of this market, it's enough energy to supply 14 million houses. So this is a lot of energy, and we have all these power plants operating with seawater. So this is also something that we establish, although we have several alternatives to get sweet waters from different places in our area. But we have this commitment to reduce our impact in the region. So this is one point that's very important as well. We have the biggest slurry pipeline for iron ore in the world. So it's 529 kilometers, and we have all of this connection, pumping iron ore to the port, and we have the reuse of this water within the port. So this is also something that's very important. And one point that's very interesting as well is that we started a campaign for decommissioning of vessels and making a circular economy for the steel mill, so we can optimize all the materials that can be recycled, reducing all the footprint that today is emitted to have these kind of assets being deployed. The green energy and feedstocks, we have alternative fuels, like we have all the light fleets running into ethanol, which is something that's very easy to have here in Brazil. And we have 14% of biodiesel in all the heavy fleet. And together with the country strategies, we are heading to have 24% biodiesel on the regular diesel. So this is also a very important source of fuel that reduces the impact on the fossil fuels consumption. Also, we have the generation and actually the consumption of energy 100% as certified renewable energy. And this is something that we've been doing already. And thinking on green solutions for the logistic chains, we have some alternatives as OPS, onshore power supply. We have all the industry that we are developing for the green hydrogen, as I mentioned, but we also were one of the first ports to have ESI, which is the Environmental Ship Index, applied in Brazil. So we give a reduction on the port call fee to all the vessels that has a lower level of emission. And this is a real commitment, because we we reduce our revenues to have better vessels operating in our port. And this, we have more than 4 years operating with all of this, and this is very, very important as well. And one point that I didn't mention that gives the framework of the way we develop the port. We have 1/3 of our area, so it's a 40 square kilometers area that we dedicated voluntarily to be a conservation unit. So it's a very, very highly valued asset that we volunteer develop as a place to educate people and to conserve biodiversity. So this is a very important point. And just some sharing some thoughts here. I also represent IAPH as the Central and South America Vice President, and I would just like to share here that we have the World Port Sustainability Program, and basically we have a database that's open for all of you to find projects in ports from all over the world, taking actions for environmental care, climate and energy, community building, digitalization, infrastructure, the category that I mentioned that we won the award in 2024, and also health, safety, and security. And we have more than 400 projects that belongs to 160 ports in more than 60 countries, and it's accessible to all of you. So in case you have an idea and want to develop something, you can reach there some information on how we've done, or make contact with the ports that had this experience. And of course, we are open as an association as well to interact and to give all the support you need. So this will end my presentation, and I thank you very much for the opportunity to be interacting here, and also will be very keen to get the questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vinicius, for providing such a valuable insights into the groundworking work that Porto Azul is undertaking to establish this new renewable energy hub. The efforts of several Brazilian ports, particularly Porto Azul, are truly commendable and represent a significant stride toward energy transition in the region. We eagerly anticipate the expansion of these initiatives throughout the region. But I will now move on to our Q&A session. Ask our three speakers to turn on your cameras. I will start the first question with Travis. Travis, given the limited space at the Port of Bridgetown, what strategies are being implemented to balance infrastructure expansion, sustainability goals, and operational efficiency while also avoiding congestion?
Okay, so, well, it's an interesting question. So I think through the integration of our digital operating systems, and just trying to improve the operational efficiency at the port is really the optimal goal there, in terms of ensuring that goods move in and out of the port as quickly as possible, but also strategic planning in terms of the allocation of resources, and consultative planning rather, to make sure that we map out the port in the best way as possible going forward, so that when we leverage our technology, that it also reflects the operations that are supposed to happen around them as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Travis. Next question is for Vinicius. So Vinicius, how is Porto de Azul collaborating with other stakeholders, such as shipping lines, energy providers, and government agencies to accelerate the energy transition and promote a sustainable port operations?
We have a very strong advocacy on energy transition, and we must do it, and we must make everyone understand that there will no solution that will come from Porto do Sul. We must make people understand that we must work together, and we will need power grid capacity. We will need public policies that will support all the investment that we need. We must make our clients also understand that we must have to make investments together. And we have a very, very strong point here is that when we think in energy transition, we must think that we must produce the renewable fuels. We must think that we need to make all the investments to have this supply chain structured. We must think that we have to invest in ports, and it's a completely different timeline. We can have a vessel running, burning green methanol being made in 12 months. To have a port with the capacity to operate new products, maybe 2 years only taking care of the environmental aspect. And then we have to build it. So it's not easy, it's not fast, and it's not cheap. And we're not going to make this alone. And this is one very, very important point. And the fourth aspect that I like to bring is that we must think in resilience. We are suffering all over the world with all the problems that climate change are bringing. And we must find ways to provide money to these regions, to worldwide have capacity to invest in infrastructure, to have resilience in this process at all. So this is also one thing that I would like to share in mailing. The discussion is based in make a problem of all of us and thinking together and working after solutions. And the solution is not clear. It's not easy. And as I said, we won't get there alone.
Excellent point, Vinicius. Thank you. Next question is for Julieta. So, given the complexity of measuring emissions, particularly in the maritime sector, how does Ecopis align its measurement methodologies and indicators with the standards and guidelines set forth by the IMO? Are the ASIPONAs actively working to ensure that the data collected through Ecopis can seamlessly integrated into regional and global emission reporting and reduction efforts?
Well, the International Maritime Organization has standards to measure the carbon footprint of ships through operational carbon intensity indicators and the energy efficiency. So in this case, Puerto Inteligente Seguro aligns its methodology since it measures the activity of the ships within the limits of the port areas with the time and the different stays in the port. And now not only ASIPONAs, but all ports in Mexico are working through the platform to guarantee that the data is reliable. Because in the inventory emission, they also have to present the documentation that supports that the capture information it's useful for us. And this also goes through a validation process, not only for the ASIPONAs, but also with the terminals and the general coordination. So we are working together not only as Manzanillo port, but all ports in Mexico, federal, estatal ports, and with the help of the general coordination of ports and merchant marine Mexico. So we're working to improve this.
Excellent. Thank you, Julieta. Next question is for Travis. So, Travis, with Barbados Port Inc.'s ongoing investment in renewable energy, such as the expansion of PV systems and the development of waste-to-energy facility, what measures are being undertaken to ensure the scalability and the reliability of the systems to meet future energy demands?
Okay, so we spoke very heavily on the infrastructure aspect of the improvements throughout the presentation and a lot of the questions. But one of the things that I think is worth highlighting is the investment in human capital as well. So there is a lot of training going on, not only within the port system, but also across the country, with the recognition that it is a direction in which the country wants to go. In addition to that, anything that we do in the port has to be informed by, as I mentioned earlier, the consultative planning process in the port's master plan. So everything is related to that and informed by that master plan, in addition to the capacity needs that we have in-house. In terms of being sustainable down the road, there are components of the system that we don't make in-house. And part of the long-term thinking is the evaluation of the providers as well. Kind of having that life cycle approach in terms of making sure that when we do procure those items, that they're coming from responsibly sourced materials and things like that, in addition to all the other aspects.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Travis. Next question, I'm going to do it to Julieta again, because it's a little bit related to the previous question as well. So once ASIPONA Manzanillo has a clear understanding of their emissions profile, right? What specific decarbonization strategies would be prioritized? How will this data be used to identify areas for immediate emissions reduction, such as energy efficiency improvements? Additionally, how is the port collaborating with industry stakeholders and policymakers to develop and implement long-term decarbonization plans?
First, I think it's important to say that it's not only Manzanillo Port, but also all the ports in Mexico with the general coordination. And we start in June of this year when the General Coordination of Ports and Merchant Marine in Mexico published a document called Decarbonization Strategy for Ports of Mexico, which clearly states the efforts that we made in 2022, laying the foundations for the integration of the inventory. And it defines as a necessary premise to update the operating rules in all Mexican ports, considering that it's an obligation for each company in Mexican ports to report its emissions and to implement an air pollution prevention and control plan. And also regarding prioritization according to the results obtained, we can identify possible actions aimed to promote sustainable mobility, both marine and also land, and also promote the reduction of the use of fossil fuels in cargo equipment. And we also have our terminals changing to electrical connections in their equipments. And with EcoPeace, we can identify the direct emissions for the operations in each port, not only Manzanillo, but Lázaro Cárdenas, Veracruz, Ensenada. And this can give us really good information to improve Mexican ports. So Manzanillo Port has a close relationship with the Coordination of Ports and Merchant Marine, and we're making improves to our operational rules to include these really important aspects. And with this, we are working as a team with all the parts of our ports, and we are making strategies and specific programs to improve this part.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that answer, Julieta. Last question for Vinicius, and then I'll turn over to Jorge and Tania for their final remarks. Vinicius, given the national efforts carried out in Brazil for the energy transition, how can the development and adoption of renewable fuels be expanded across South America? Do you envision the emergence of a green shipping corridor in the future? And what role do you think Porto do Sul would play facilitating this transition?
Not easy question, huh? What we have basically is that of course, we see that Brazil will be part of these green corridors. Not only because of the business that we currently have, but also because we can be strong providers of biofuels. So this is one point that's very important. If we think a vessel that can run methanol, they can run ethanol. It's a pretty much similar molecule, and even with ethanol, we have a dew point a little bit higher, which brings safety to the vessel as well. So, and we have the capacity to process like animal fatties. We have the capacity to produce veg oils and all of these things. If we consider Brazil as a country and as part of the solution, we can do a limited job connected to what I said earlier. We must think in process. We must think into international connections, because what's happening today is due to IRA, due to Green Deal, we are exporting these veg oils, we are exporting these animal fats to become HVO somewhere else. And after on, we are importing to make some trials in Brazil. And doesn't make sense. And we must consider all the emissions that we have with this molecule that goes to walk around. We must make integrated process and see what are the international needs and what are the best place to produce this. This is something that we must instigate our authorities to think of, because otherwise we will be trying to preserve the industry base that each country has, and we'll just look to the other side of the fence trying to get energy. And this will make poor countries even poorer, and we will keep with rich countries becoming rich. And what is in the game right now is that we must organize it not because of being poor or being rich, because the emission that is made, produced in Brazil or in Finland will impact the global warm just equally. And we must think on how to make this happen. Of course, we look as a country that will be a relevant role. We, as Porto do Sul, we also see that we can take a good share on making it happen, but we got to make it this together, as I mentioned earlier.
Excellent. Thank you, Vinicius. I just want to highlight two main things that were mentioned right now by our speakers in their answers. And it was the investment in human capital and the strong need for collaborations with all the agencies that are involved in this energy transition. And that's actually what we promote at the SIP. We promote the investment in the human capital through our capacity building programs, and we strongly try to make sure that all our members have a strong collaboration with other agencies in the sector. So without saying anything else, I want to thank the three speakers today. I was so honored to be moderating this webinar with you. And honestly, I took so many notes of your presentations. They were excellent. And without adding anything else, I lead on to Tania.
Thank you, Sabina, and thank you to all the speakers. This was a truly amazing and eye-opening webinar. I just wanted to go back to the first webinar that we had on this series on decarbonization, and that was on a global scale conversation about regulations, about financing, about alternative fuels and geographical dynamics. And today we really brought it down to site-specific solutions, right? And we talked about very different topics, very broad categories such as digitalization and everything that ASIPONA Manzanillo is doing in Mexico. We talked about electrification from many things that are being done in Barbados in terms of solar PV and shore power and electrifying ancillary services, to obviously all these things on alternative fuels, on ammonia and hydrogen and green marine corridors that are being done in Açu in Brazil. But I also heard a lot about measuring. I think that's very important. We talked about things that we need to measure, such as emissions, to know what we need to do and how, what are the bottlenecks, what are the hotspots that we need to tackle. I also heard something that I hadn't, that I didn't even have in mind, which is AI technologies, right? We have so many new technologies at our disposal to find all those hotspots and to move things forward, such as AI, the Internet of Things and blockchain and so many things that are even out of the realm of my knowledge, but that was amazing to hear. I also heard about integration of other sectors. I think that is super important, something that's being done in Brazil. They're bringing in industry, steel, fertilizers. They're finding ways to really leverage the energy and what is being done in the maritime sector for the benefit of others and to create economies of scale. And also to promote a circular economy, right? At the end of Vinicius was talking about efficiency, not only of energy, but of use of resources and how to minimize waste, for example. That was truly eye-opening. That was a really holistic strategy. And I think all of these solutions are obviously very dependent on site, on geography, on what resources are available. But I think this gave us a really holistic view of what ports can do and what stakeholders can do. Obviously, there's a lot of things at stake. You need resources. The amount of resources needed for this transition are huge. We also heard about collaboration, about stakeholders collaboration, about the need to bring in the private sector investment. So I think this is just a taste of all the things that we need to organize and to coordinate to have a just transition in the sector. But I hope that it was as eye-opening for everyone as it was for me. I think the SIP already shared the contacts of the amazing experts that we had this morning. They're going to share the presentations online for anyone that needs it. And I just want to say thank you again to our speakers and to the SIP for inviting the Institute of the Americas to participate in this webinar. And I hope to see you all soon. Thank you, Jorge and Sabi.
Wow. Well, thank you, Tanya. Seriously, I'm like going over my notes and I'm okay. She said this. Okay, she said this. She mentioned that. That. So you've actually done a wonderful job, I think, of recapping what all the speakers said, making my job much easier. So thank you for that. No, really impressive. Best practices all around. I think that it was wonderful to be able to pick an English-speaking Caribbean nation like Barbados, who has done a lot in digitalization and in environmental protection, and then have a country from North America, Mexico, with ASIPONA Manzanillo, which just happens to be the largest container port in Mexico. And then we went to Porto do Açu, who, Vinicius, I have to tell you, I am so impressed at how you have managed to really conceive of a gestalt from the different pieces and resources available to you. Kudos, my friend. I congratulate you and the port. I think that something that is clear that Tanya mentioned, is the need for collaboration. And Vinicio said it at the end of his presentation. We cannot do this alone. We need everybody to pull together. And this is why the SIP is around, in order to facilitate these contacts, in order to promote and create synergies that help us develop the sectors better. One thing that is clear is that in all three countries, we perhaps they weren't mentioned explicitly, but we do have national policies that are implemented at a legislative level that promote investment in these areas from the private and public sectors, and that these are very, very important in order to do what the three of you and your countries and your ports are doing. So, ladies and gentlemen, like Tanya said, the presentations will be on the SIP portal. Thank you, the speakers, for letting us share. We've also shared your emails because they clamored, the chat clamored for your emails. They said, contact, please. We need to contact these people. So we've shared your emails. And I will now hand over the floor to each one of you so that we can say our goodbyes. This is our last webinar until February of next year. So we rest this holiday season. But I'll just go in the order I have here. Vinicius, favor.
Thank you very much. I just have to congratulate by the initiative, because this is very important. And if we are thinking that actually we understood we have a challenge, and we also understood we have to cooperate, and we are giving some steps forward. So this is very important to have SIP collaborating and putting together all the actors that are here today. And of course, we have to bring much more people to take part in making them understand that we need all of us. Thank you very much, and was really a pleasure.
Indeed, thank you. Since the order that I have here is Sabi goes next, so go ahead, Sabi.
No, that's okay. Travis can go next. I already said my goodbyes. Thank you all for everything.
Okay, so Travis, my friend.
Well, first of all, I think that this was a very fruitful discussion. I really enjoyed learning from the other ports as well. I think it really shows or showcases the difference in context and how, even though we might have similar challenges, that we kind of approach it very differently. And I hope that the conversation doesn't end here between us and even some of the other stakeholders or participants who are here, because the context might be similar in some of our cases, and that could then frame the groundwork for greater collaboration. So this wonderful discussion, and I thank you for inviting us to this forum.
No, thank you. Thank you all for participating. In fact, let me thank all three speakers, and Tanya and Sabi, for their time, for
We're
donating
missing Julieta, Didi.
their expertise. Perdón, Julieta, que es la que le toca. No, voy a ella. Hang on.
Okay.
To thank all the three speakers for donating their time and their expertise and working with us and helping us and supporting our work, which is what we do. Ahora sí, Julieta querida, y luego le vamos a dar la palabra a Tania para que termine, como siempre, la palabra final con una mujer. Así que, Julieta, adelante.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the invitation. And I think, as Vinicius said, it's a group effort. It will be a really challenging for everyone. So this is absolutely amazing, because we can share all that we are doing in our port. So it will be a long effort, but I think we can make really good changes.
Thank you, Julieta. And before handing it over to Tanya for her to close, I just wanted to thank Vinicius again for mentioning the World Port Sustainability Program and the database that is there available. Vinicio, at some point, I'm going to follow up with you, see if we can create a direct link from the SIP portal to that database, and that way give it another window of exposure. I think that would be a good idea. And so now, the best for last, Tania querida, send us out.
Gracias, Jorge. Thanks again to everyone. We'll look forward to seeing you in 2025, hopefully with a third version of this decarbonization of the maritime and port sector webinar. And happy holidays, happy Thanksgiving to the people that are celebrating that, and see you soon. Ciao.
Okay, speakers, we're moving